In Palestine, the Israeli genocide in the Gaza Strip continues after 408 consecutive days of attacks that killed nearly 44,000 Palestinians. In Brazil, the G20 Summit kicked off amid international divisions due to sanction policies, Israeli aggressions in the Middle East, and the climate crisis. In Honduras, the government is advancing in recovery efforts after Tropical Storm Sara, which left at least 2 deaths and over 100,000 affected people due to flooded communities. Hello, welcome from the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Palestine, the Israeli genocide in the Gaza Strip continues after 408 consecutive days, killing nearly 44,000 Palestinians. According to local media, in the last 24 hours, Tel Aviv troops killed at least 76 Palestinian civilians and injured 158 others. The Gaza Health Ministry warns that these figures could be even higher, as many of the victims remain under the rubble that could not be removed. Local health authorities confirmed that the number of Palestinians killed by Israel since October 7, 2023 stands at over 43,922, while 103,898 people have been injured. The Israeli regime continues its expansionist policies at the cost of land grabbing and destruction of Palestinian homes in the occupied West Bank. On Monday morning, bulldozers of the occupying forces demolished several buildings in Raftown, northwest of Jerusalem. Local sources reported that the Israeli troops demolished a garden, a hut, 2 football fields, and a photo studio in the Beit Zurich area. In addition to these actions, the constant harassment by the Zionist forces and settlers seek to advance in the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians and to expand illegal settlements in the occupied West Bank. In South Sudan, the Ministry of Health is on alert for a possible cholera outbreak. According to the organization Doctors Without Borders, the conditions for a cholera outbreak are in sight following the continuous arrival of numerous refugees from neighboring Sudan and the precarious conditions in the settlements of workforce migrants. The non-governmental organization reported in a statement the increase of cases in the towns of Rink and Malakal in Upper Nile State. Specialists warn that the current situation worsens the conditions to sanitize the outbreaks of the epidemic in Upper Nile State, so they call for an immediate vaccination campaign. And in Gabon, authorities announced the new constitution had been overwhelmingly approved in a referendum marking a new chapter for the oil-rich African nation. The new constitution sets out a vision of presidency with a maximum of 2 7-year terms, no prime minister, and no dynastic transfer of power.
For the yes, 416,983, which corresponds to 91.8%, for the no, 37,302, which corresponds to 8.2%. It should be noted that the observed participation rate is 53.54%. Thank you.
Now we have a short break coming up, but first remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. In Russia, the Ministry of Defense reported this November 18th that 59 Ukrainian attack drones were shot down on the day in various regions of the southwestern part of the country. According to the report, of these unmanned aerial vehicles, 45 were intercepted in the Bryansk region, 6 in Kursk, 3 in Tula, and 2 in Moscow. Last month, the United Kingdom and Netherlands, NATO members both, had promised to deliver new batches of drones to Ukraine. In recent months, Kiev's drones attacks on oil refineries and fuel depots in Russia have also intensified. The president of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro, condemned that the governments of the United States, the United Kingdom, and France allow Ukrainian head of state Volodymyr Zelensky to use dangerous long-range missiles to strike Russia.
You should know that while we are here, the government of the United States, France, and the United Kingdom, the Holy Alliance of Evil, they have just approved the criminal Nazi Zelensky in Ukraine to use his missiles and long-range rockets to attack our sister nation Russia. I am telling you, it is a defining time. I could tell you that the US imperialism has entered madness stage, the revenge stage. Let's take care of Venezuela. Let's take care of our land, of our peace.
And after Washington authorized Kiev to use long-range weapons against military targets inside Russia, the Chinese government reiterated its call for a peaceful solution to the Ukrainian war.
China's position on the Ukraine issue is consistent and clear. An early ceasefire and a political solution serve the interests of all parties. The most urgent thing is to cool down the regional situation as soon as possible. China has always encouraged and supported all efforts conducive to a peaceful resolution of the crisis and is willing to continue to play a constructive role in the political resolution of the Ukraine crisis in its own way.
In Honduras, the government is advancing in recovery efforts after Tropical Storm Sara, which left at least 2 deaths and over 123,000 affected people due to flooded communities. Authorities reported that since Sunday there have been over 8,000 evacuees as a precaution in the hit areas. In addition, they revealed that rising rivers might close several paramount bridges that communicate the capital with other cities to avoid possible disasters. Likewise, they declared the capital to be on maximum alert for current downpours across all Central America that pose damages. In India, New Delhi dawned with a severe level of pollution, forcing its government to implement extreme emergency measures such as the suspension of classes and industrial activities. From daybreak, fog to reduce visibility to minimum, causing flight cancellations and delays at railway stations. The air quality index in the Indian capital stood at 485, a reading classified as severe plus and which has serious health implications. Authorities have therefore launched from today stage 4 of an anti-pollution plan, the strictest of national protocol, which limits commercial and industrial activity, establishes online classes and teleworking to avoid exposure. In the Philippines, authorities reported at least 8 people dead following the passage of Tropical Storm Manyi. This weather event reached wind gusts of 135 kilometers per hour, resulting in several destroyed infrastructures, downed power lines, blocked roads, landslides, and floods. Government authorities reported that 7 of the victims were killed by landslides north of the city of Manila, and another died in the municipality of Catanduanes. The Philippines faced the consequences of the weather crisis with the 6th storm in less than a month, which left more than 680,000 people affected. And in Cape Town, scientists are working hard to safeguard the African penguin, as there are just about 10,000 breeding pairs left in South Africa and Namibia, which implies having lost 97% of their population.
What can we do at a colony level to prepare for that? We undergo and we put in disease surveillance, and that is particularly around avian influenza, and what can we do to reduce the risk of that. And then we also need to manage predators as well. So there are many predators of African penguins, and this also has a very large impact. And so we really need to look at it holistically And then we also conduct a lot of science together with collaborators to better understand their movement, the threats at sea, the threats on land, and try and make recommendations for how we can safeguard the species and prevent it from becoming extinct.
We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English, where you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break, go away. Welcome back. In Brazil, the G20 Summit kicked off amid international divisions due to sanction policies, Israeli aggressions in the Middle East, and the climate crisis. World leaders gather in the city of Rio de Janeiro for the G20 Summit, which runs until November 19th. Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva delivered the opening remarks introducing the proposed global alliance against hunger and poverty, an initiative that seeks to eradicate these issues at the global level. Those present at the event will discuss a measure that could impose a tax on the countries with the highest incomes on the planet with the aim of protecting the environment. They are also expected to discuss global conflicts, among them the Israeli aggression against Gaza.
It falls to those gathered around this table to tackle the urgent task of ending this scourge that shames humanity. For this reason, we have made the launch of a global alliance against hunger and poverty the central goal of Brazil's G20 presidency. This will be our greatest legacy.
On the sidelines of the G20 Summit, Chinese President Xi Jinping held a bilateral meeting with British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, saying that the two countries both shoulder the responsibility of responding to global challenges.
The world is currently entering a new period of turbulence and change, as permanent members of the United Nations Security Council and major global economies, China and the UK shoulder the important task of promoting the development of their respective countries, as well as the responsibility of responding to global challenges.
In this context, U.S. President Joe Biden landed on Sunday in Rio de Janeiro to participate in the G20 Summit. Biden arrived accompanied by the Secretary of State Antony Blinken. The head of state announced that the U.S. will raise to $100 million its contribution to the Amazon Fund, an initiative promoted by Lula da Silva. This amount is less than the $500 million committed in 2023 by Washington over 5 years. In Ecuador, the Minister of Environment, Water and Ecological Transition, Inés Manzano, informed that the country will reduce daily power outages from 12 to 8 hours after Colombia began selling energy to the nation on Sunday. The minister highlighted that thanks to the recovery of 65% of the Colombian reservoirs, 420 megawatts had been acquired on this first day, although the transmission grid to Ecuador has a limit of 450 megawatts. In this context, Manzano explained that rainfalls are expected on November 19th and the 21st in the basin of the Coca-Cola-Sinclair hydroelectric plant, which will allow lowering the time slots of service disruptions. According to the minister, in December, the time slots could be further reduced depending on weather conditions. Meanwhile, in Argentina, Cristina Fernández led her first act as president of the Justicialist Party, in which she defended the role of the state in the midst of the neoliberal onslaught carried out by Javier Milei's government. In the city of Santiago del Estero, the former president addressed thousands of supporters on the occasion of the Peronist Militancy Day. It was the first appearance after the conviction against her by the Cassation Chamber in the Vialidad case, which will be appealed in the Supreme Court. During her speech, Cristina Fernández affirmed that they are trying to ban her and highlighted the achievements of her government. At the same time, she summoned other political forces to face the adjustment policies promoted by Milei's administration. In In Venezuela, the first edition of the first International Poetry Book Fair was held in Caracas from November 13th to the 17th. This unprecedented event gathered poets of different nationalities who shared their creations and experiences with the Venezuelan audience, bolstering cultural exchange.
The first opening was attended by prominent global personalities of culture and politics. The Venezuelan Vice President for Communication, Culture and Tourism, Freddy Ñañez, presented his new book, Sobre Blanco, within the framework of this event. For 4 days, the Rómulo Gallegos Center for Latin American and Caribbean Studies, CELARG, has become a meeting point for poetry lovers. Writers from Argentina, Azerbaijan, Bolivia, Colombia, Cuba, Chile, Ecuador, Peru, and many other countries share their works with the Venezuelan audience. On the poetry event, attendees enjoy a variety of activities such as poetry recitals, writing workshops, book presentations, and art exhibitions. These activities seek to bring poetry closer to all audiences and promote cultural exchange among nations, making Venezuela a literary meeting point in Latin America. This book fair not only celebrates poetry but also aims at inspiring new generations of writers and readers by bringing literature closer to the community and offering a space for cultural exchange. The encounter consolidates itself as a key event in the country's cultural agenda.
With this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website, telesurenglish.net. So join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.